We're producing the best set of leaders Africa ever produced. So thank you for coming. Help me to say good morning and welcome to someone sitting next to you. Please do, let's have a seat. So I should start by saying that I never thought that I could lead. When I was a teenager, if I was in a group and you asked someone to offer to lead the group, I would be the last person to offer. Why? Because I was shy, very reserved, I'm introverted, and I found it difficult to converse with one person, look straight into the eyes of one person to converse. So to talk about standing before a group of people to talk scared me. So it was easy for me, therefore, to believe that leadership had to do first with occupying a position. So it was whoever was chosen to occupy a position that was the leader. Secondly, that people that are extroverted, outgoing, that are friendly, are better leaders, better at coordinating people to get the job done. So I believed that until I read the book. Of course, at first, I found out people began to recommend for me to be appointed to some positions while I was in school. But then an elderly man, a reverend minister in our church, called me one day and said, there's something about you. There's something about you. Take this book and read it. Okay? That was the first book ever that I would read on leadership. I think it's titled Christian Leadership by Donald S. Altman. The book was old, ragged, and this was about 30 years ago. So if the book was out of print 30 years ago, just imagine what it's like now. Anyway, but what I found in the book intrigued me because to the extent that I took a notebook and wrote most of the major points in that jotter, and I still have that jotter till today. What struck me was that the author said all those old principles by Socrates, by Plato, that few people are born to lead, everybody else is born to follow. He said those theories have expired. He said if you have read Genesis chapter 1 before, and the story of the creation of man, and what was said there, that God said, let us make man in our own image, after our own likeness, and let them have dominion. When you realize the potential that God put in man that way, he said you will realize everybody has the potential to lead. He listed the qualities of a leader, and then said, whoever you are, reading this book, you have some of those qualities already. And that was true. I found that I had some of the qualities. He said the ones you don't have, you can develop. You can cultivate. I realized that was true. And that was why I then now set for myself specific goals, deliberate goals. As I developed those qualities, I just literally floated to the top. Anywhere I found myself after that. Leadership, simply defined, is the ability to influence one or more people and to organize resources to achieve a goal. See, once you move the definition of leadership from occupying a position to persuading, influencing one or more people to achieve a goal, then you realize all of us have the potential to lead. In fact, we've been leading. If when you were young, you persuaded your friend to go with you to buy sweets, you led your friend. That was leadership, okay? It's as simple as that. Then you realize that leadership happens at all levels, right? So, leadership is taking people from point A to point B. It's as simple as that. Taking people from point A to point B. Usually when I speak on leadership, if it's the first time I'm speaking to a crowd, I try to illustrate leadership. I get someone from the crowd to come stand behind me. Then I ask, the group, if we stand there for 12 hours, we just stand still, and after 12 hours, you ask me, what are you doing to her? And I say, I am leading her. So I ask people, will that be an accurate description? They say, no. I ask why? They say, because you're not moving. I said, then thank you. Where there is no movement, there is no leadership. If there is no improvement in somebody's life, you're not leading the person. In fact, when you go back to the illustration, the more accurate description of what you are doing will be that you are blocking the person's progress. You are obstructing the person's progress. If you are not taking me from point A to point B, you're not leading me. You're frustrating my progress. So many people occupy leadership positions, but they do not necessarily lead people. All of us have the potential to lead. This is the message of our movement, that all of us have the potential to lead, and that leadership happens at all levels. Whenever you say our leaders, especially in our environment, people's minds just go straight to people that occupy positions in government. You say our leaders, and you know what that does? It's comforting to everybody. It's comforting to everybody because it gives you someone to blame. It gives the populace, gives the masses somebody to blame. If things are not working well, it's them. I believe that now Africa is beginning to realize changing the personalities that occupy positions has not changed our lives. Why? Because even when you put the best person out there, if the people do not agree on where we should go, nothing is going to change. So the discussion has moved from leaders to leadership. It's the quality of influence, how we influence at all levels. We cannot underestimate the influence of parents on their children. It's massive. It's destiny shaping, especially for the first 7 years of a person's life. How do we quantify the influence of teachers in school over their pupils or their students? Leadership is happening every day right there at your place of work. Leadership is happening every day. Leadership happens at all levels. We all have the potential to lead. And that's why our quest is to improve the quality of leadership at all levels. Okay, so we go back to our illustration. So you stand behind me. What we realize is that for me to be able to take you from point A to point B, I have to be moving from point A to point B. Or it should be that I made the journey already, and I can tell you exactly how to navigate your way from A to B. Am I right? Yes. So, great leaders, let me describe it this way. Self-leadership is the foundation for great leadership. Self-leadership is the foundation for great leadership. The most difficult person for you to lead is you. Other people are like you. If you can succeed in moving yourself from A to B, you would have learned to a large extent how to move other people from A to B. Self-leadership is the foundation for great leadership. Great leaders break personal barriers and inspire others in the process. Great leaders break personal barriers. They break their own records. Because in moving from A to B, you realize it's smooth on paper. But it's not that smooth in real life. Am I right? You meet obstacles. You have to overcome challenges. You have limitations. They may be financial. They may be relational. Okay, you have to deal with people. Okay, Okay, you lack this, you lack that. You have disadvantages. Maybe a physical handicap, maybe social, maybe financial, maybe in terms of they may be educational. Okay? So, but the good thing is that we have the capacity to overcome those challenges, to overcome those limitations. Now, something happens when you overcome some of those challenges and you move. Whether you are conscious of it or not, someone is looking at you. And somebody is being inspired. Why? Something tells other people that if you can do it, they can do it too. At an unconscious level. Because they realize you don't have two heads. Okay? You don't have four legs. You're a human being like them. If you can do it, they can do it too. We've had the story of Roger Bannister, the first man to run the mile. That's the 400 meters under 1 minute. It had never been done in human history. Nobody had been able to do it. And some had concluded, that medically speaking, it was not possible. It was 1954. Roger Bannister did it. He did it. That made history. You know the surprising thing? Within 1 year, I think 8 or 9 other people ran the mile in under 1 minute. Isn't that interesting? What nobody had been able to do in human history. Once one person broke the ceiling, cracked that barrier, everybody believed, it's possible, right? It's possible. So whatever it is you're doing, whatever progress you're making with your life, whether you are conscious of it or not, you are giving some people permission to also break their own barriers. So that dynamic is called inspiration. It's a very important dynamic to leadership. That when you are moving from A to B, you are inspiring someone and telling them it's possible for them to break their own barriers. Chris Lowney said, if you want your team to perform heroically, be a hero yourself. If you want your team to perform heroically, be a hero yourself. Take on your challenges. Find a way to resolve them. Find a way to jump over your barriers. To become a great leader, you focus first on your growth in self-awareness, in character, and in competence. You focus on your growth. That's the first thing about leadership. You've got to be growing. You know, sometimes we think it has to even come in terms of accomplishment. That's one thing. But sometimes it's just even knowledge. That you've been reading. Now you know something that you did not know before. You open your mouth to speak. The people who have always known you hear you say something you've never said before. And they're wondering, where did you get that from? That's leadership already. That's leadership already. Okay? So you grow first in self-awareness. You know yourself. You know your strengths. You know your weaknesses. Okay? You know your capabilities. You recognize your opportunities. You recognize the threats to your progress. It's just self-awareness. Then when you can identify your gifts, your talents, your opportunities, you leverage them. Agreed, you don't have control over everything. Agreed, you have a lot of disadvantages, but you are strategic in your thinking. You are wise enough to know those places where with little effort you achieve unusual results. Then you invest your resources there. You grow in character because those challenges are testing your character. Will you lie just in order to be able to get ahead, or will you stick with the truth? Will you cultivate strong values or not? Will you compromise your values just to be able to get ahead? They are tests. You use them as opportunities to strengthen your character. And then, of course, you develop skills. You shoot for achieving excellence because that's the only time you get noticed. So this is the dynamic. You focused first on your journey from A to B. Then you help others to make their own journey. Focus first on your own journey. And then help other people to make their own journeys. But I'm here to say this morning that your journey is important. In the equation for great leadership, your journey is very important. I acknowledge the fact that you've come a long way. I don't know what your journey exactly has entailed, but you've overcome some challenges. And I want to say this morning, please honor your struggle. Honor your struggle. You know, all of us battle low self-esteem. There's just that voice that speaks to us, that voice that speaks to us in our minds, telling us we're not enough yet. I should let you know, listen, some of the celebrities that you follow on social media, some of the greatest achievers on this planet still battle with those thoughts that we're not enough. We still have to. But I want to tell you this morning, you have to learn to shut that voice down and to celebrate how far you have come. Because you need some motivation in the first place for you to be able to move on. Whatever it is you have overcome to be able to get to this point in your life, it is something. Honor your struggle. Honoring your struggle helps you to find your voice. You have a unique voice. And the world needs to hear that voice. Darkness is covering our world. I hope you can see. They say depression is becoming the number one killer disease in the world in a few short years. The suicide rates are going up. Okay, it's like there's some gloominess in the world. We need some light. We need some brightness. We need some positive stories in our world. Don't underestimate the power of your voice. But you find that voice when you pay attention to your own struggle. Last year, we were blessed by the story of one of our speakers. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Battled polio from the age of 2. But his story was so inspiring, wasn't it? And we're so happy. He's here this morning. Amen. With his beautiful wife. I can never forget when he learned to drive. He would, when his dad was not home, and his dad had said, "Don't even bother. You know, since you don't have one leg, don't bother." And he taught himself to drive. And then one day the driver took him out. On the way back, he told the driver, "I can drive it." Persuaded the driver, took the steering, and then, if you were here last year, remember the story. The car stopped on a rail track, and there was a train approaching. The driver escaped and was shouting for him to come out. And people were screaming, and he said he just didn't know what the car started, and he just jumped out of the way. Inspiring story, right? Honor your struggle. We need to hear your voice. You need to inspire somebody else, especially in an environment like ours. The future is looking gloomy to the younger generation. You're the one underestimating what you've come through to get here. 1994, I had this very interesting experience, frustrating experience. It was a very frustrating month for me. February 1994. I was invited to speak at a church in the UK, and it was going to be my first ever visit to the UK. I prayed, I fasted, applied for the UK visa. I was denied the visa. I was sad. It's painful. Then my pastor said, you know what? Don't worry. I'm going to Ivory Coast to speak in a few weeks' time. Come along. On the day we were to leave for Abidjan, my brother too, who's a pastor, was to be on the team. My brother and I left from my house. My pastor left from the hotel. We got to the airport. As we were approaching the airport, I saw the aircraft on ground, And then we got into the airport and they said check-in had closed. My pastor, we could not see. The people that took him to the airport, we could not find. So our assumption was that he was on the aircraft. So now, just imagine what my mindset was. UK, I could not go. Côte d'Ivoire, I'm to go now. They've closed the check-in counter. Satan is a liar. So so we thought about it. What's the next flight to Abidjan? Air Cameroon. We bought the ticket. So whichever way it is, we'll go there when we get there. In any case, the host organizing the conference there was also a staff at the Nigerian embassy there. So we'll just go to the embassy anyway and then find our connection to the venue. We arrived at Abidjan. As we were walking on the tarmac to the terminal building, somebody was holding a card. And they wrote Adeyemi on it. I thought, wow, that's it. They already knew we were coming and had made arrangement to pick us from the airport. So we approached the man. He said, Adeyemi's? We said, yes. He said, oh, we just got a telex message from Lagos saying that you should return to Lagos immediately. What happened? So they just took us, they said, come along. They took us into the terminal building, said we should just stay somewhere. The same aircraft was returning back to Lagos, so we should just wait, and then we will board. See, they did not even stamp our passports. You see the interesting dimension to it? I was in Abidjan last Friday and Saturday, and I told them the story. Because since then, this would be the next time I would be going to Abidjan. Then I told them the story. The first time I came here, they did not even stamp my passport. I have no proof that I stepped on Côte d'Ivoire. So we came back. And then, I realized my pastor had not made the flight too. The time for the flight had been shifted to 1 hour earlier, and the agent had not told us. 2 knocks. Then my pastor said, don't worry. I'm going to Kenya next month. Both of you should come along with me. Okay. So we filled the forms for the Kenyan visa. They took our passports and the forms to the Kenya High Commission. By the time they brought the passports back, it was only my own passport that had no Kenya visa on it. I said, no. Kenya. I understand United Kingdom. Kenya. There must be a devil. There must be a demon. In fact, it's not a demon. It's a principality that is on my case. So, they said I made a mistake filling the form. I corrected it. I got the visa. We went to Kenya. But I wasn't excited on that trip. I said, no. This is getting too much. So when I came back, then I said to my sweetheart, we need to pray. So we went together to the Lekki Beach, the Monday after Easter. I still remember. In April 1994. Fasting and praying. Lord, this is stagnation staring me in the face. It's too early in life to be stagnated. What is it? How do I move to the next level? And he said I should just continue to pray. So I was praying for like 3 months. And one morning, the answer came to me that he was moving me to the next level through my ability to teach, my teaching gift. And he said I should teach people how to succeed. I should do it through radio, TV, seminars, conferences, and electronic products. So that's how I started attempting to go on radio. I had no idea. Nobody around me had run a radio show before, but I was very sure about the idea. The only thing, though, was that I argued with God at first, because the instruction was teach people how to succeed. I said, should I not succeed first? What gives me the authority to teach people how to succeed? He said, it is not your accomplishment that will give you the authority. The fact that I instructed you to do it gives you the authority. I said, okay, fine. So I started, and it's amazing how the whole process worked fast. I don't have the time to share the whole story. But the long and short of it is that on the 8th of February 1995, my broadcast went on air for the first time. Success Power on Ray Power. I still remember where we were. In fact, we were out somewhere and we had to go to the car, to put the radio on just to hear that voice. Welcome to Success Power. I am sad Adeyemi today. I went through that process afraid. When they got, for example, how much it would cost. The day they mentioned it at the meeting, 120,000 naira, airtime and production. 120,000 naira. Just for you to have an idea, my salary was 8,200 naira or so. 120,000. So I almost screamed. Then I remembered that the guys there were my church members. I said, you teach them faith. You can't say here that there's no money. You teach them faith. Okay? I said, there's no problem. We'll take care of that. When I got home, I went to pray. How will I get 120? I wrote it on a sheet of paper. One radio broadcast, Success Power, 120,000 naira, and stuck it on the wall so that I could see it every day and pray and call it in. So long and short of it, the money came in, everything worked out, the broadcast worked out, and from the first show, somebody ran to our office that day, a journalist who had made up his mind to commit suicide. He said, you saved my life, because my first broadcast was on the power of persistence. What am I trying to say? I did not realize that in my struggle, I'd studied civil engineering in school because my grandfather was the head of all the builders in my hometown. My dad is a building contractor. So building was in the family. I grew up on construction sites. And even though I was stronger in the social sciences, in commercial subjects in secondary school, I did the sciences by force because I was already a director in my dad's company. So I wasn't going to look for any job. The job was waiting as director. The only problem was by the time I was done studying civil engineering, the company was no more. The country was going through a very difficult time. There were no contracts. I had to search for a job. It took me almost 2 years to get the job. I despaired. It was like the door was closed. The future was looking bleak. In the process, there has to be a way. There has to be a system. How can I be sure about the future? Those were the questions on my mind when I began to read books. I was searching, and I found the answer in books. I read Tough Times Never Last, but Tough People Do by Robert Schuller. Very powerful statements there that I have not forgotten till tomorrow. Maybe one of the strongest statements there was, attitudes are more important than facts. That almost twisted my brain. What do you mean by that? Attitudes, what I think, how I feel, more important than the reality? Yes, exactly. You may not be able to control the reality. If you can control your thoughts, you control the reality. Because ultimately, your most dominant thoughts will produce or create their material equivalent in your life. Okay? So I did not realize that in reading books, in learning like that, I had already moved ahead of most Nigerians. So what I needed to do was just take that knowledge, even if I had not achieved humongous success yet, just say those new things I found out. It was boom on radio. Had so many fans. People would gather, and it was 11 a.m. on Wednesday morning. And people would, call themselves in their offices. The team broke denominational barriers, broke religious barriers, because it was not a religious program, it was just purely motivational. I was the one underestimating myself. I was not the only one going through that experience. Millions of Nigerians were going through the same difficulties. So, and that takes us to that second part that is important, which I believe all the sessions at this conference will help us to navigate. When you have found your voice, the next step in the leadership equation is for you to turn your focus from yourself to others. Turn the focus from yourself to others. You know why? Helping others was the purpose of your struggle in the first place. It wasn't about you. I know you had to go through a difficult experience, and you thought the whole world was against you, that you had special problems. No, you don't have special problems. There's nothing happening to you that has not happened to other people before. In fact, that is not happening to other people right now. And if you could just turn around and use your story, the little progress you've made in your journey, if you could just turn around and help somebody else, you'll be amazed at the value of that story. It wasn't about you in the first place. Now give us a passage of scripture, 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4. 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our tribulation. Why? That we may be able to comfort those who are in any trouble with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. The deeper or farther your starting point, the further you have come, and the more inspiring your story. Just in case you are tempted to hide your story, how low your starting point was, what you went through, how demeaning it was, how much undignifying it was, like having to carry water on your bucket, on your head, in a bucket on your head, like having to listen, you hide that, you hide your true value. However low that point may be, it actually helps us to appreciate how far you have come. And that is what creates the inspirational value. Moving from being self-centered to being others-centered is a big shift. It's a big shift. So, if you know my story, you know I collected those visa refusals, quite a bit of them, if you know my story. In my journey with the British High Commission, I think I got like five times, U.S. Embassy twice, Netherlands twice. You've had the Kenya one. So the second time I was refused at the U.S. Embassy, so I got back and prayed and said, Lord, now I'm sure it's not the devil, it's got to be you, because whatever devil could have stopped me, I bound them. Prayer and fasting. I threw all of them into abyss. So it must be you. What is it? He said, I want you to sit down, face this church, build it. I said, but it's not growing. And the Bible says the Lord added to the church daily those that were being saved. So you are the one that adds people to a church. He said, why do you want the church to grow? I thought God wanted the church to grow. Why would he be asking me a question like that? But instantly, just to call to me, when God asks you a question, it's not because he doesn't know the answer. He knows everything. It's usually because he wants to confront you with your foolishness. And I sensed something like that was coming for me. So I did not say anything. So he said to me, I know why you want the church to grow. You want to be more comfortable. You know that the bigger the church is, the more comfortable you will be. He said, I want the church to grow, but that is not why I want the church to grow. I did not set up that church for your comfort. I set it up because of those people that I sent to you. Until you help them to succeed, you will not find the definition of success for your ministry. So you have an idea what happened to me that day. I can never forget it. It was a paradigm shift. Because it was true. I wanted to be the pastor of a mega church. I wanted to be successful in ministry. So what? So you gather thousands of people just to count them as numbers. People are too special to God for that. What God did to me that day was to deliver me from self-centeredness. So for once, I asked myself, okay, wait. Actually, let me look at the people. What do they really need? When we did an analysis of the people that live 5 miles radius from our church, we categorized the problems and challenges they have. Poverty came first. And that changed my message, changed the approach. I became practical, not theoretical. And of course, I found all the principles in the Bible. So, to influence others, they need to trust you. And for them to trust you, you need to be deeply caring and to be vulnerable. And that's what I'm going to stop with today. Vulnerability. For you to influence people, you need to be deeply caring. Break free from self-centeredness. Put the focus on other people for a start. You have something of value that can help them. But then to influence them also, you need to be vulnerable. Stop hiding. What you think is shameful, what we think may bring you shame, is what will bring you fame. Tell your story. See, today I've come so far along that except I tell people, they cannot imagine where I'm coming from. And until they know where I'm coming from, sincerely speaking, I don't connect with many people, especially if it's an audience I'm speaking to for the first time. When I tell them, look, you can succeed, they say, of course, why won't you say that? You can prosper right here in Africa, of course, why won't you say that? You know, so, and with that, the thing goes in one ear, just comes out the other. Because somebody is thinking in their minds, do you know what I'm going through right now? Do you have an idea? So if I don't talk about how many times they refused me visas, how would somebody who's been refused a visa have an idea I experienced that? They would think my life has been perfect all along. So when I was in Côte d'Ivoire, I was telling them, you see, because it was the Global Leadership Summit, quite all right. The other faculty speakers are from the western part of the world, but I understand this context, these people. So I said to them, I know what it means to be poor. I know what it means to be poor. So I said to them, do you know, for example, that rich people don't know how to press toothpaste out of the tube? Then their faces lit up. I said they press the tube from anywhere. And they began to laugh, you know. I said, when you've experienced poverty like me, you've experienced deprivation, you don't press it anyhow. You press it from the bottom. Thank you. Then I mean, the chatter went up. They were talking to themselves. It was like, this guy understands. This guy. So, you know. I said, you press it gradually. You don't press it anyhow. You press it gradually, until you exhaust it. I said, even then, you push the last paste through the mouth. You make sure the whole thing is flat. The paste cannot escape anywhere. By then they were shouting. I said, in fact, you don't stop there. You take a knife, you cut that tube. So you see what that is doing? It's establishing a connection. and telling someone, oh my God, so this guy, so he's been there. Okay, so that means he moved from there to here. And if he moved from there, where I am to, then he can tell me exactly how to move from there to here. I cannot establish that connection without vulnerability. Vulnerability is probably the boldest act of a leader. It takes courage to be that brave, to be that open. I used to think people would lose their respect for me. You know, as a great person, as a highly placed person, if people know, you know, it will be too demeaning. Oh no, you're losing your voice. So I want to encourage, it's time for us to tell our stories. But please remember, the story has to be worth telling. If in the process you compromised, if in the process you lied, if you have not corrected, if you've not admitted your mistakes and done some correction, you can't put that in a book. That's why many successful people around can't write books. Our younger generation needs role models. We need leaders. It is possible to make progress in Africa in spite of all the difficulty, in spite of all the challenges. The challenge we've had is that people hoard what they know. There's too much hoarding of information. Tell us, and please, once again, never underestimate how far you have come. It's to you that it looks simple. To somebody else, it can be very confusing, including knotting a tie or cooking ogbono soup. What we need is just the confidence, the boldness to come out and say, I can do this. In fact, you develop it, you find a way to structure it, you write it down, you write it in a very interesting way, and you describe yourself as an expert in that area. What you call yourself is what they will call you. Honor your struggle. Tell your story. Inspire somebody. Turn the focus from yourself. Help someone. That is how we make the journey. At least start the journey to great leadership.